Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Amari's Revenge. The goddess next door is confronted by a Nubian queen out for revenge at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in this inaugural Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Amari's Revenge in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. Before I take CyberFrog Blood Honey to the barbecue, I wanted to let everybody know that the books of the SJS Direct 2024 catalog are now available on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can pick up the 3 books of the SJS Direct 2024 catalog: John Haynes' Illuminati, Isis, Dark Incubus, and Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com right now. And you can also pick up my first full digital comic, Esteem No Good Deed, for just 99 cents there. And then you can head over to Lulu.com to pick up the first full John Haynes comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, which is available for the same price that it was on the 2022 Kickstarter. Now, back in about 2016, we had an era of what people called the social justice era of comics over at companies like Marvel Comics that led to many people on social media calling it SJW Marvel. Now, these SJW characters, as they were called by many comics YouTubers, was a group of comics that were all about promoting so-called diversity and inclusion passively, but aggressively pushing tokenized versions of iconic characters like Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, and the Hulk in many of these what they were called all new, all different Marvel comics at the time. Now, those books did not feature the original white male characters such as Steve Rogers' Captain America, Tony Stark, Iron Man, Thor Odinson, or Bruce Banner, the Hulk, or even other characters like Logan Wolverine. No, instead what we got were characters that were just token replacements that were race swapped, such as Sam Wilson, Captain America, Riri Williams, Ironheart, a Jane Foster, female Thor. We got Amadeus Cho as the Hulk, and we also got Riri Williams as Ironheart, and we got other tokenized characters such as the Palestinian Muslim Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, and all of these characters were supposed to be a part of an all-new, all-diverse Marvel on the surface passively, but aggressively there was no real change as related to the editorial or creative. And because there was no real change as related to the editorial or creative outside of white males being replaced with white females, what we got was on social media a narrative talking about how these were social justice comics, and how these social justice comics at what they were called SJW Marvel were about pushing a so-called woke agenda. And this woke agenda was all about promoting these social justice and identity politics over story. Now, this whole narrative of SJW and woke really didn't make much sense, because what we were seeing here was that the companies were basically looking to, again, passive-aggressively push diversity and inclusion without actually putting any sort of diversity, because there were no real qualified individuals being hired for these jobs, just inexperienced individuals who basically they were pushing to, again, on the surface, push for diversity, check boxes, but not really looking to put out quality stories. And this was the narrative that comic artist Ethan Van Sciver, who was running the Comic Artist Pro Secrets YouTube channel, was using to go out and promote his upcoming independent crowdfunded project, CyberFrog Blood Honey. And as he was looking to promote this comic, he wanted to go out here and promote the idea that his comic would be something that would be more appealing to the base of white male comic fans, and be something that would be of higher quality than the books that were currently being published at Marvel from 2016 onward, and that his books would basically fit a more traditional story paradigm that would be more appealing to the base of comic fans that had been alienated as a result of the reboot known as the all-new, all-different Marvel. Now, Ethan Van Sciver was the one who led the charge, saying that his CyberFrog Blood Honey comic was going to be the thing that would revolutionize comics, and he was able to get a lot of media hype with the right-wing people out there, and was able to also get a lot of hype as related to social media, and was able to go out to the site Indiegogo and raise over $1 million for the funding of CyberFrog Blood Honey. And as I look at this comic, I don't really see that this book was worth all that hype. Yes, Ethan was a good pitchman as related to getting the sales, but when I look at the overall book, it just really did not impress me at all. No, Ethan is very good at doing Marvel and DC characters as related to doing the art in the interiors of comics and doing covers, and he may be even a very good pitchman, but CyberFrog Blood Honey doesn't really just excite me at all as related to story, and that's where this book really just is really weak, is because Ethan, while he's a great artist and a pitchman, isn't really a good writer at all. Because after reading CyberFrog Blood Honey, I can just tell you that this book is really mid as related to a story, really mid overall as related to a character, and the premise just doesn't really get you excited at all. No, this whole CyberFrog Blood Honey comic really doesn't really get you excited. It just feels like, yeah, just another bland, dreary character that basically feels like something out of the days of the black and white era of the 80s. But because Ethan has the money, he can go out here and get that book colored, but it just doesn't feel like something that you would get really excited about if there was no hype about all of these woke, so-called social justice woke comics. I mean, what I basically see here is just again a mid attempt as related to a comic to get an old character back out on the market, and this mid attempt just shows how this character's whole premise and concept really don't answer that critical question that I have to answer when I put fingers to the keyboard, and that question is, why should we care? I mean, after reading this CyberFrog Blood Honey comic that I saw online, I don't really see a reason to care. Yeah, we got this character who comes from an alien planet. He's coming down to Earth, and he has to, again, replicate into something that would allow him to adapt, and we get him turning into a frog. But I don't see anything here that's even remotely as exciting as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, I'm not going to go out here and put all the comic up here because I don't want to deal with any sort of copyright issues from Ethan Van Sciver or deal with anything, even though this is fair use under copyright law. No, I don't want to deal with that, but I'm just going to talk about what I've read. And again, like with Eric July, I'm just not impressed with this comic because, again, the writing isn't that strong. There's not enough here to really make me care, and not enough here to make me care because most of the book is expository sequences about the CyberFrog, but doesn't really develop the bad guy, the Swarm, and that really could drive the conflict. Because when you're writing comic book stories, you really have to set up your conflict in less than three to 5 pages. And sadly, Ethan doesn't do that at all. No, we get lots of fancy pages that really, again, have dazzling art, like many Image comics of the 90s, because a lot of Image comics in the 90s, they had a lot of dazzling art that was very flashy, but there wasn't much substance to that story, and that's why many of those 90s comics basically fell off, just like many of the Bad Girl comics of the 90s fell off, because the writers really didn't know how to create compelling stories that would make you care and draw you in. That's a skill that Ethan really hasn't developed, And it really shows on the pages of the CyberFrog comic, which basically feels more like another one of those knockoff Ninja Turtle books that came out in the 80s. Now, as a kid who grew up in the 80s, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were a big thing even before they wound up with the animated series. I mean, a lot of kids from my junior high school back, IS 148, they were reading Ninja Turtle comics. But what made Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stand out from the crowd was the story that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird put together. That's what really stood out with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But with CyberFrog, I really don't see that story. No, I see another attempt to try to be like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like the Karate Black Belt hamsters and other characters that came out in that era. But those premises fell flat because they just did not have that story element that made you care. And with CyberFrog, I just found it hard to get into this story. I mean, yeah, you've got these villains, the Swarm, but again, the Swarm are not really well developed to make you see their threat. I mean, yeah, they go and they look to infect people with the locusts and the honey and all that stuff, but I didn't really see a reason to care about anything in this book. I mean, this is one of those books that you would read, and after you read it, you just become indifferent, and you wouldn't be counting down the days to anticipate the next issue. No, this is one of those books that wouldn't do that at all. But with with many comic fans getting caught up in the politics of Comicsgate, they wound up buying into the hype and wound up buying into the hype for a book that, as I see it, just isn't worth it. Now, back in the day, I thought Comicsgate was all about really seriously making change so that we could get real quality stories. But after reading some of these books that were a part of Comicsgate, I'm seeing that many of these writers basically were just using politics to try to sell their really mediocre books, and they needed to go out here and have that crutch to sell their mediocre books because they couldn't really sell their books on the merit. And that's the irony of the whole situation with CyberFrog Blood Honey. The real irony here is that many creators like Ethan Van Sciver, they would say, oh, we are about making books that aren't woke. Well, Sean's standard isn't that the book isn't woke. Is the book good? That's the critical question I always ask when I'm doing reviews of these independent books. And when it comes to many of the Comicsgate creators, many of the books just haven't been good that I've read. I mean, when I look at Eric July and many of his books at his Ripaverse line, I mean, Isom was absolutely terrible. The other book that he did with those three heroes, I can't remember the name. That's how bad and mediocre that book is. Alpha Core, Awful Core, Alpha Core. I mean, that book was mediocre with a plot twist involving a USB key that any IT technician would never do on a main server. I mean, the storytelling there was just so terrible. And I have yet to get to Yaira and take that book to the barbecue because that book is also so mid. And again, I'm looking at these books from these guys who say that they're on the right, and I'm not seeing anything different from the books on the far left. No, what I see with both the social justice and the Comicsgate books is a complete lack of quality as related to writing, a complete lack of quality overall, and I'm not seeing anything that would make me say, hey, this book would save these comic book stores and save the comic marketplace. Not really seeing anything that would go out here and revolutionize things as related to all of the hype that came out in 2016, because in 2016 these guys basically, or 2018, they were out here talking about these books, about 2018, 2019, talking about these books like they were going to again change the world, and we see that really not much has changed as related to things, and this is why the comic book industry is still in dire straits even after these books were announced. The whole comic book industry is still in dire straits after these books have been announced and even been pirated online. Many of these books are they never really got that momentum. Yeah, guys like Ethan Van Sciver made $1 million and Eric July made $1 million in their grift, but the industry is still suffering. Yes, they got their sales of by basically 1,000 copies, which is nothing because as a self-published writer, I've gotten books that done 1,000 copies. I mean, books like Why 70% of Black Women Are Single have done over 1,000 copies. Books like Stop Simpin' have done over 1,000 copies. And even my book, Esteem No Good Deed, the prose version, did over 3,000 copies. So that's not really anything to write at home about as related to sales. I mean, these books really were not doing that great and really, again, not really impressing me. And that's what the sad part about CyberFrog Blood Honey is. Again, yeah, Ethan made a lot of money in the short term, but the industry suffered in the long term because we didn't get that revolution that was had as related to phenomenons like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a phenomenon that went from being a black and white indie comic to being a mainstream major merchandising juggernaut. Same thing with Todd McFarlane's Spawn. Todd McFarlane's Spawn went on to be a major merchandising monster and also went on to spawn movies. I mean, Spawn was, again, a success overall, and even Jim Lee's Wildcats was a success to a point that it got a Playmates toy line. But CyberFrog wasn't the revolution that it was, and many other comics from many indie creators were not the revolution. And basically, the comic book industry, for all of the hype, really is in the same dire place that it's in. I would even go on to say that it's progressively gotten worse as related to the comic book industry. But we were all told that CyberFrog Blood Honey was going to go out here and make some big money, but it did. But Blood Honey really, as I see it, it just was a weak book, and again, a weak book that you could just read it and you just go, meh. Yeah, here's another book with a mutated animal, and again, taking on an alien bad guy. No different than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I don't see anybody talking about making some CyberFrog frog legs or things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pies, which I would rather go out here and have. I would rather see a reissue of some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pies, because them pies with that vanilla pudding and that ooze glaze, man, that was absolutely fantastic back in the day. You just had to be there for those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pies. But I could pass by CyberFrog Blood Honey, and I could pass by CyberFrog overall after reading this comic. Just not seeing anything here that just, again, gets me excited, like I am for many other indie books like Sister Mercy. I mean, Sister Mercy by Corey Hardiman is absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic comic that just gets better with every issue. I mean, there are a lot better indie books out there, like The Exorcist Club. I'm just looking forward to that #2 coming out. I'm hoping that Red Sea Comics gets that one out there, because I'm reading that book so much that I possibly going to need another one, because I'm basically going to read that one till the cover comes off. That's how good the story is in that one. And there are just far better comics than these ones that are hyped up by Comicsgate. There are far better comics out there by indie creators that are of higher quality that I can go out here and recommend. And what's interesting to me is that all these Comicsgate guys talk about how bad comics are, but don't go out here and promote other indie comics like I do. I mean, when I go out here, I'll put money down on people's Kickstarters and Indiegogos and talk about great comics, again, like Sister Mercy, like the Exorcist Club, like T-Bird and Throttle, just absolutely fantastic independent comics. I mean, there's just so much good stuff out there, and if you get out of the echo chamber of Comicsgate, you can find a diversity of great titles by seasoned professionals who are far better at getting out quality books, and you would be better off spending your money on one of those books instead of buying into the rhetoric of Comicsgate, which really hasn't really led to the growth of the comic book industry. No, many of those books have come and gone, and as they have come and gone, people have made a little bit of money on the short term, but long term, we're not really helping the medium of comics grow, not really helping the medium of comics get better, not really helping the medium and help people improve in their craft. And when it comes to Ethan Van Sciver, yeah, he's a great artist, but he's not really a great writer. and he really needs to work on his craft before he starts making any more comics, because what I read in Blood Honey really was not really good, and it really wasn't something that I would go out here and want to recommend. It's more one of those meh books of the 90s, one of those meh books that nobody really would care about, and it was one of those that would just come and go, like many of the Bad Girl comics that would just come and go, and some of them would even get action figures, but really it wasn't anything you really would get excited about. I mean, there's nothing here with CyberFrog Blood Honey that warranted any of the hype. Same thing with Isom, nothing really warranted the hype on either side of these far-right creators, or what they call right-wing creators. I mean, when I look at these right-wing creators and I look at the far-left creators, I see the same amount of inexperience and lack of craft. I see the same amount of inexperience and lack of craft, and what they want to do is go out here and try to hype their books up to overcompensate for their weak story, because if they had a strong story, they'd be able to go out here and get that word of mouth out here as related to their books. So I look at this whole thing, and again, 5 years ago, I was caught up in the hype, and now after reading the comic, I realized that how bamboozling it was. And again, I thank God I didn't spend any money on these books, because I would have gotten bamboozled as related to things. But with Comicsgate, I don't really see them again producing books of quality, and again, that's why they never really got to make their momentum, and that momentum never really got them to move forward to get their books the mainstream popularity of stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now again, the books of the SJS Direct catalog are available right now on Amazon.com in paperback, and you can pick up books like John Haynes' Illuminati, Isis Dark Incubus, and Esteem Horror in the Hamptons on Amazon.com right now, and you can pick up the first digital comic, Esteem No Good Deed, available on Kindle right now for 99 cents, and you can get the first full John Haynes comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, on Lulu right now for the same price as the 2022 Kickstarter. And I'm trying to get the next SJS Direct comic out, and I need your help to do that. So if you guys could drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App, that'd be greatly appreciated. And I also use that money to go out here and try to support good quality independent comic creators and make video comic reviews like this, to get their books out there in front of a larger audience, so people can go out here and buy their books and hopefully get some good quality comics, because a lot of people want quality comics. We want really good quality stories, and there are so many great quality stories out there, but you just have to go out here and look for them, like I do all the time, because I'm very passionate about comics. I want to share great comics with you. And when it comes to CyberFrog, this isn't a comic I would want to share. This is one that I would pass on. But there are lots of other great comics I want to go out here and review. And I, again, use donations from you guys, from the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App, to not only raise the funds to pay for the covers for SJS Direct books and pay for SJS Direct comics, but I also use it to go out here and support great independent comic creators so that they can get their books to the marketplace and reach a larger audience, and hopefully keep this medium going on for the next generation. And with that said, that's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback at e-readers, Isis Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Now available on Lulu, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at lulu.com today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.